What's going on, guys? This is Damien from The Lookout. Yes, I told you that I was moving. I'm bringing you the long-awaited BT24 meta breakdown. Now, I have been talking about this for a while now, how the BT24 Masters meta is the best meta that we've ever had, and now I have some data to show you to prove my point. But before we begin, two things. First off, we host locals. Every single Friday, webcam locals, free entry, no prizes, proxy legal, streamed on Twitch. We are currently having some of the biggest Masters locals in the world. If you wish to play, go check out our Discord, link is in the description below. And of course, a huge shout out to the Coffee Club, our lovely patrons. These are our $2 and up patrons. They buy us coffee. They keep this crazy content grind going, and guys, thanks a lot for your support. If you wish to join the Coffee Club, link to a Patreon is in the description below. And I think that's about everything. Roll the video! As with all of our videos, let's start with the breakdown. So this is the full BT24 data breakdown so far. We're like halfway through until BT25. I've gathered data from 8 events in total, 104 decks recorded. So that's a big sample size, right? And before we dive into it, I need to tell you that this, what we're having right now, is by far the best meta that we've ever had. Now, I've been doing this for like 2 years and something, and this is the best meta that I have ever seen. And I believe from what I have heard that this is much healthier than any of the previous meta games. So yeah. Without further ado, let's jump into the breakdown. Let's start with top 8/top 16 decks. Look at this. So first off, these are all of the leaders who got top 8/16 at least 4 times over the last 8 events. Why we're splitting it between 8 and 16 mostly due to event sizes. Each color has at least one deck which topped 8 or more times. We can define these decks simply through their results as tier 1 decks. So each color has one tier 1 deck. This has never happened before. We have U7 for yellow, of course, Green Gohan, SS4 Vegito Zeno, Tapion, and Future Gohan. Each color having one tier 1 deck. This is phenomenal. And if you take a look at this, the difference between them, the difference between the amount of them that amount of these leaders which had reached top 8/16 is not that big. We will be talking about this on the next slide, but it's not like there were 27 Gokus and 8 future Gohans. Like the difference is what? 5 decks, 5 placings. So that's minuscule. 9 different leaders got top 8/16 at least 4 times since the start of the meta. 9 different leaders, at least 4 times, and you can see them here. In total, 31 different leaders had topped at least once across all 8 events. 31 different leaders. That is 29% of all decks before repeats. So basically, if you take a look at it, if we split the data by percentages, 29% is different decks. And then we started getting repeats. So it's singles and then the rest is doubles, basically. Now, guys, if you don't trust me, before we move into some other statistics, let's compare this to previous meta games. Okay, so this meta versus older metas. Now, the reason why I wanted to do this is because I knew that there were gonna be arguments. Well, there were leaders topping in the past, and there were a lot of different leaders. So it's kinda the same. No, it's not. Because take a look at this. First off, I'm not including BT20, because BT20 was dog shit. Like, everyone knows what happened in BT20. 18 to 20. We're just looking 21, 22, and the next slide is going to be 23. So here is the main difference. If you look at 21 and 22, you have one clear dominant deck, which is Gohan here. It's either 27 Gohans or 32 Gohans. And then you take a look at the next deck below it. Like in BT22 meta, Mehi, that second best deck topped in Pen, have topped literally 50% less than the dominant deck. Yeah, there were a couple of other decks which with 4 placings, but the meta had mostly revolved around Gohan. It wasn't this close. Now, if you take a look at BT21 and BT22 past Gohan, you will see that the other leaders are much closer to each other. So let's take a look at Majin. Majin is at 8 and A21 is at 12. So that's just like 4 decks difference. But the thing is that the one deck that's dominating is so much more present than anything else. Like, it's really meta warping, and then you have a couple of things that can beat it. In this one, the top 5 decks are extremely close, and not a single one is, unlike Gohan, miles ahead of the rest. Like, everything is relatively super close. Now let's take a look at BT23 meta. For BT23 meta, I just took an old graph, so this is the finals results outside of NA finals, because BT23 meta was just basically the finals. And that's it. So if we take a look at this, once again, you have the clear dominant deck, which was U7, 26 decks, and then 11 Gohans, and then a bit of the rest. Yes, granted, this was a much shorter metagame than what we are used to, but once again, you see a meta where there's one deck, which is so above everything else. And then you have a couple of things that can beat it. And that's it. And then compare that to BT24. Now, if we're gonna take a look at it like, it was a short meta and stuff, well, this one, BT24 has 8 events? And this one has, I think, around 5. So they are pretty close to each other anyway. So, yeah. I believe that from what we have seen here, it's clear that when it at least comes to leader diversity, the current meta is much more healthier than anything that we've had in the past. Now, if you still don't believe me, which I don't blame you for, let's take a look at the color breakdown. Here is the color breakdown. So yeah, I think this kind of cements the argument that this is the best metagame ever. This is the full color breakdown of all decks which made it to the top 8/16 across the last 8 events. All of them. The balance between these colors has never been closer. Like, it has never ever looked like this since BT18. Even before BT18. I'm saying 18 because that's when I came to the scene and I started tracking data. Blue, black and green are clearly in the lead. However, red and yellow are super close behind it. Like, it's not like what we've used to seeing, where you have like 3 color, one color is super dominant, the other 2 are kinda in the lead, and then the last 2 have like 3 decks or something like that. No. This time, all of them are pretty close. Let's say that 20 is the perfect mark to make it somewhat equal. So 3 and 4 spots behind 20 is not that big of a deal, especially when you take a look at everything else. And another big thing to note here is that while red and yellow haven't been as represented as blue, black and green, they have topped more than some other colors. So we've had at least 8 Gohans, future Gohans, and then you add pens to that, and then that's kind of like 12 already out of 17. 13 out of 16 yellow decks were U7s which topped. So despite the color balance not being perfect, like absolutely perfect, which it will never be, the lowest represented colors are shifting the balance a bit by topping more often. So yeah, this is really good. Like, this is the best that we've ever had. Now, let's take a look at some deck choices. Let's start with blue. So these are the best blue decks in the meta. These are all of the blue leaders which have topped more than once across the last 8 events. So as you can see, there are quite a few options in blue. Janemba is here, mostly that's only Peter Dance. That's no one else, that's just Peter Dance. So other than that, you see that Tapion, Beerus and Gogeta are clearly the outliers here. They are the best performing blue decks in the game at the moment, and your other viable options are Expert 21 and Janemba. The missing leaders are one Gohan superhero, BT19, which actually won the event, Bastian's Gohan, and one Sevenku. Now let's take a look at some other colors. Let's take a look at red or black. I don't know what's next. Best black decks. Okay, so there's less diversity in black decks. We have 3 standouts, and those are clearly SS4 Vegito Xeno, clearly the one in the lead. Then we have Fu. Fu has always been good. I think Fu is one of the decks that's been really slept on by a lot of people, but Fu has always been good. Even in the previous metagames, Fu has been the best black deck. And then we have the deck which just doesn't want to die and just hates people, and people hate it, Hechiek. So 3 copies of Hechiek. The missing leaders are... So keep one thing in mind, despite these being the most represented ones, there are more missing ones. There are more leaders with a single finish than there are in blue. So the missing ones are Vegex, Sinzino, SS4 Bardock, Shroom and Salsa BT18, and 1 Mexicabura. Now let's take a look at red. When it comes to red decks, well, we have 3 clear standouts, right? We have Future Gohan, which is by far the best red deck. Like, it's uncontested. I would be shocked if something came out next set and was objectively better than Future Gohan. It's so hard to achieve this. Then we have Pan, which Pen remains, how I wrote it, because I'm an idiot and I don't know how to use space. It's a great option. It's still a great option. And then we have Cooler, which almost died, but luckily didn't. So yeah, Cooler also continues going strong. The other missing leaders are Android 17 Fake Invoker, Red Jiren, and Red Androids. Now, this idyllic picture of multiple choices kinda goes down the drain when you take a look at green and yellow. See, this is what I'm talking about. So green and yellow are the colors which really need some diversity in them. 13 U7s and 13 Gohans. And then 3 Apkus and 4 BT24 Gokus. So as good as BT24 Goku appears to be, Gohan is still the preferred green deck. Same for U7. I mean, like, yellow overall is the worst color in the game, I believe. So, at the moment. So, there are not a lot of options. Like, really, these 2 colors are really short when it comes to viable options. But despite that, their available options are still incredibly strong. Like, these 2 decks have been topping like mad. So yeah, while the color itself is kinda boring when it comes to choices, it's extremely powerful. So yeah, we will see what happens in the next set. I don't believe that anything is going to topple these 2 decks, but maybe we get some pretty good alternatives. Before we end the video, let's jump into the summary. So the current Masters metagame is the healthiest that it's been in years. Since the last 2 years, or probably ever, to be honest. I haven't tracked data from that back. I've just looked at like BT18 onwards and 17 a bit, but I don't believe that the metagame has ever been this healthy. Like, this is the perfect Dragon Ball meta. Also, another thing that's worth noting is that all of these events had almost all different decks in top 8s. Yeah, that doesn't happen normally. So every single color has at least one high-performing meta deck, with all of those different decks being very close in tournament results. Very, very close. The color balance is better than it has ever been. Three dominant colors are really close to each other, while the losing two colors are still putting up amazing results despite the lack of representation. And I'm happy to say that for the first time since I've been doing this, I can say that we're in the perfect metagame. There are no tier 0 decks. No, Tapian is not tier 0, stop deluding yourself. There are no broken cards. There are multiple viable leaders in all colors. There's nothing that should be banned. There are no clear outliers, like this is much better than anything else. There is no like straight go-to deck. It's never been this crazy. Like ever. So I can say that we are indeed in the perfect metagame. Like this is the golden age for Masters. Like let's enjoy it until next set drops and then we see the horrible ungodly thing that Benda is gonna do to punish us for the game performing this well. That's it for the video. Let me know in the comments below what is your opinion on the current metagame. Are you as sold on it as I am? Are you hyped to see this amount of diversity across all events? Let me know in the comments below. I read all of your comments, I try to respond to everything, I love our little community. And while you're here, share the video, it helps out other players, hit those like and subscribe buttons and help us get to 6k subs when I'm gonna give away a booster box. This has been Damien from The Lookout and I'll see all of you in the next video.